Y'all can wave. It's okay to wave. Well, we've got the newbies down at this end of the table. You mind saying your names, who we are? Who you are?
Phil Holzheimer.
Terry Holzheimer.
And you bought which property?
Well, it's a hangar lot, J2.
J2, okay. And you are?
Andy Kelly.
And where are you from?
Runway.
And you bought what lot?
Ed Fisher's home.
Fisher's lot, okay.
Whiteplains HOA.
All right, welcome to Whiteplains, both of you. All of us.
I'm new too.
Baloney.
Make it to the church.
To make sure it's filled up so that the next person doesn't have With some flurries?
West.
With some flurries, you're going to play that?
And it's going to, you might see it do something, but after that it's going to disappear by the time.
12 inches, you're going to be looking around here a long time.
I know that.
50 bodies. We have a big crowd tonight to our annual meeting. To get things started, yeah, you're going to get things started. We're going to let Bo go over the numbers and the financial and tell us where we sit.
All right, you guys got a copy of the budget and the mailing that went out in December the 1st, I believe it was.
November.
Last of November. Does anybody have any questions about the budget? Not, I'll just summarize it. Hello.
Hi. I do.
Okay.
I just want to know, only for my own knowledge, about the
No.
money that, the money that was in the pilot's savings was taken out, and I'm assuming some was given to the checking of the homeowners and some to was $30,000.
So there were two big expenses for the year, and both of them were not really expenses. Out of Fund A, we took $11,000 out of the checking account and deposited it in the savings account. So when we say that was an expense, it was really just a movement of money from the checking to the savings account. We did the same thing. We did the same thing in the aviation account, but it was $19,000 that moved from the checking account to the savings.
That was at $30,000.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
That help? Okay. So at the beginning of the year, we started off with $39,920 in savings in Fund A, which is the Homeowners Association account. We earned $58 in interest. We had $11,000 that was a transfer from the checking account. That resulted in $50,979.11. That was our balance as of 20 November. We've since had a $12.79 interest payment. Right now we have $50,991 in the Homeowners Association account. So savings account for Fund B, which is the aviation account, we started with $66,000. We earned $98.25 in interest. We took $19,000 out of the checking account and put that in savings as well. So we had $86,039.19 in our savings account for the aviation fund. We've since earned $21 in interest, and we have $86,060.76 as an ending balance as of the 29th of December in our savings account for the aviation fund. Right now we've got $12,290 in our checking account for the Homeowners Association. We've got $11,394 in our checking account for the aviation fund. The only outstanding bills we have is there's a 400 and let's see, let me give you exactly. We have a $914 bill from the guy that repairs the fence. We have a $385 invoice from the engineer who assessed the runway. We have a $300 bill due to SC99, and I just paid the bill for our dinner tonight, which was $601. So we're sitting pretty funds-wise. I can show you, if you have an interest after the meeting tonight, I have every expense that we paid last year, and I can show you exactly, you know, dollar for dollar, what we paid and who we paid. Again, the summary you guys have already seen, so I don't think it would behoove us to belabor the issue further by going over each expense. So if you have a concern or a question about those expenses, come see me. I've got it all right here. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Why are the two funds separate? What's the breakdown?
So I'm not the best person to answer that one. I'm just the guy that keeps up with the checkbook. Homeowners Association, it collects the homeowners' fees and pays for things that benefit the homeowners association as a whole. Fund B is the aviation fee. It's associated with, it comes from the runway fees that are collected, and it benefits the runway itself and pays for those things associated with keeping the runway up. In simple terms, how'd I do?
Yeah, it was set up like that when the association was created. Seems a little odd, but, you know, if we could figure out how to get all the money for the people that have houses and spend it on airplane stuff, that'd be great. They won't let us, so, yeah.
Sure.
I haven't received a bill.
Yeah, I've got the bills here tonight. If you'd like, I can give you mine too.
I know that we always saw them in the beginning of December.
Sure.
And I just thought.
In years past, this was a decision that the board made. It didn't make sense to pass out the bill without first giving folks in the homeowners association a chance to review the budget. The board can pass a budget increase of up to 10% without homeowners association approval, but you know, we held the bills and we're going to give you your bill tonight or mail it out tomorrow, assuming that the budget passes. So that was the idea. That was the thinking. Why send out the bill assuming that everybody's going to say, yeah, we'd like to pay more money, you know? We're giving you the opportunity to say what it's going to be spent for.
Did the board raise the association fees this year?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's 2 years running, we've raised the fee. 4 years?
3 years.
3 years.
Is it raised again this year?
Yes, ma'am. And we plan to, so the plan is, and I'll let my friend Steve here take the arrows for this. We plan to raise it every year by 10%. And the reason is because in 15 years, we're going to have to replace the runway to the tune of about $280,000. And rather than borrowing the money when it's time to replace the runway, we would like to have enough money.
Not replace it, resurface.
Oh, sorry, my mistake. That's the idea, and that's the thoughts behind raising the fee.
To give you all a little more insight, ever since I've been here, we've always been talking about saving money for resurfacing the runway, doing incremental repairs, crack sealing, and things like that to extend the longevity of what we've got. What we haven't thought about is our roads. We have right at 11,600 square yards of asphalt on just the runway. We have almost 18,000 square yards of asphalt that is not the runway, that we've never really thought about putting money away for, but it's something we need to think about. So if you look at current dollars, give or take a little bit, for what asphalt costs for the number of square yards that we have, if we were to go and resurface everything today, we'd be dropping $550,000, give or take a little. So that's something to always keep in mind. You know, people say, well, why are you raising the fees? Why are you raising the fees? This was never done previously for many years. Primarily was to keep it as low homeowners fees as an inducement for people to buy property here. We have really cheap homeowners fees, da-da-da-da-da-da. Well, they did that for, I don't know, 10, 15 years, whatever it's been. So we're behind the curve. So we automatically can do 10%. So that's what we're trying to do, is do it incrementally in 10%. And as you see, we're very careful with the money that we spent, because we were able to put 30,000 in savings. So, you know, that's the direction we're going with everything that we're doing, so that we can make all our money count, make all our asphalt last, so that unless somebody wins the lottery and wants to resurface everything, $500,000 would be a drop in the bucket for somebody.
To give you an idea why this came about, 2 years ago when I came on the board, one of the questions I asked was, how much is it going to cost to replace the runway? We're putting money aside for the runway. How much do we need to put aside? Well, the answer is, I don't know. So we hired an engineer to give us an estimate. An engineer provided a figure of $280,000 for the runway. And that's an estimate of what it's going to take 15 years from now. That was the other thing he provided, is he thinks it's going to last about 15 years, assuming we take care of it, assuming we crack seal it, assuming we do our due diligence and keep it up. So right now we've got, in the aviation checkbook, we've got, mine just went blank. We've got $86,000. 280 minus 80 is $200,000. And if we raise it 10% a year, that's only about $4,000 a year. That's about how much money that's going to generate. So, you know, 15 years from now, we're going to have another $100,000 in the bank. We're still going to have to borrow money to resurface the runway. So we're trying, even though we're not going to have, you know, I don't like paying more homeowners association fees myself, and I know you guys don't, but we know that we've got this bill coming. We have an estimated due date. We have an estimated amount, and I think it's in our best interest to set the money aside so that we don't have to borrow so much or assess the homeowners and the pilots here when that day comes. So that's the thinking.
Go over the part about $4,000 again, when that went past me.
Yeah, we take in about 40, let me see, I don't want to tell you the wrong thing. We take in about $43,000 a year in fees. That's both homeowners association fees and runway fees. Now, Steve said that we've got to do both the roads and the runway. The runway obviously is more, will be more critical than the roads will be, but $280,000 is just for the runway. If we increase the dues, I'm just rounding. If it's $43,000 now and we go up 10% next year, you know, that's about $4,000 a year. So.
Yeah, 10%. Yeah.
So we won't be there 15 years from now, and we may get more years out of the runway than what, you know, than our estimate is. But, you know, the accountant in me says, I need an estimate of what my bill's going to be. I need to set money aside to prepare to pay that bill, and I need to reduce the amount that we're going to have to borrow when and if we get to that point. So there's the logic.
Hey, Bob,
yes, sir.
in 15 years, when that runway finally falls apart, you might want to think about grass, because I really like grass.
It's not legal there, Jim.
Actually, I have an affinity for grass of late as well.
I like the way you think.
I hate grass.
I like the way you think.
Any,
Have we ever approached the county to see if they would assume roads in White Plains?
right, no. That would be a scary thought, because they're substandard by county standards, so.
I don't know that.
Oh, yeah. They would know it.
We were told years ago that because of the way the roads were made or not made, that you couldn't give them to the county. If they had been put it up to standard, you give them to them and they could.
Ken.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I didn't.
When the architect came out, did he actually use quotes from maybe more than one company or?
Architect.
Yeah, when the architect came out for the runway, did he just go about what he felt would be the best price or the best maintenance fee for the runway, or did he kind of pull in other resources and networks to try to get the cost in more than one barrel?
Those are all unknown questions, because it was all a Neil deal.
No, she's not talking.
Oh, you mean?
She's talking about.
Oh, currently.
Talking about the engineer?
Yeah. Oh, excuse me, I thought you were talking way the beginning.
So the engineer made an educated guess, and the reason he made an educated guess is because his alternative was to give you an exact figure. I need to pull core samples for the runway, and we're talking about $6,000 to $7,000 to get him to pull those core samples. We decided that we would rather have an educated guess for about $400 than a date certain that was going to cost us about $7,000. So it's just that it's a guess.
He was going to drill holes in the runway.
Right.
Yeah, I was just hoping that there were variables. in there with the educated guess? More
Variables, not.
resources and.
He was more interested in what it was gonna cost us. He was assuming that the runway is gonna be, you know, was gonna be, at end of life in 15 years. And the 15 years is, he came up with that, not me. Guess, and it is a guess. It's his best educated guess as a civil engineer. So, you know, we could get a better answer, but a better answer costs more money. And the board decided not to spend the extra money, so there you go. Yeah, it's a better guess than I could come up with, but you know, we know we're going to be short 15 years from now. We don't know how short. So,
Any other questions? If not, I'd like to call for a motion to vote on the budget.
I so moved.
We have a second? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passed, okay.
oh, one last thing. I was assuming that the budget increase was going to be acceptable, so I have a present for each of you before you.
You can pay at the door right here.
I have your invoices. If you'll come by and pick your invoice up, then I don't have to mail it to you.
Saving money all the time.
Right.
Saving that 49-cent stamp that's about to turn into 50 cents. If you haven't noticed, we have new faces around here. And Patrick, Gwen, stand up. You're new this year. Tell everybody a little bit about you all.
You can do it this time, I did it last time.
So we bought the house that everybody knows as Micah and Debbie's. We moved here from Chicago suburbs in June this past summer. And my wife is a now retired RN. Little burnout, and I work from home as a IT network engineer.
Welcome to the neighborhood.
We have a house full of little girls.
Oh yeah, 4 granddaughters living with us right now, and
Keeping you
their
young.
2 parents and another son. So it's a good thing we got a big house for them.
And they're cute. They're really cute. I like them a lot. We have Danny and Sue Kelly that just closed on Ed Fisher's house a week or so ago. Y'all stand up and tell us a little bit about it.
I'm Danny Kelly, Sue Kelly, my wife. We've been married 45 years. We have homes in multiple locations, and we think this will be the final one. I'm a heavy construction contractor, and Sue works with me.
We have one son, he's 38, he lives in Conway.
Kind of airplane.
Got a T-tail Lance.
Okay.
And our son's name's Lance. Everybody said, did you have enough land?
He came before the airplane though, right?
Yes, he did.
Is it late here already?
The next new people we have are Phil and Terry Holtzman. Did I get that right?
It's landed. It's
Close enough? Holtzheimer. And Schuligan's the bit. Tell us about yourself. Yeah, good.
I'm Phil Holzheimer. This is my wife, Terry. We don't live here. We have a vacant lot down the end, J2. I don't even have a plane or a pilot's license. It's just one of those things that I want to maybe work into.
Yeah, we can fix both.
Hang around here enough to get resolved.
We live off Shore Road, off 378 over by the lake. Terry, my wife, she's a domestic engineer.
Oh my.
And
I resigned my career.
I'm a contractor, and it was just one of the things when I grew up, I just always wanted to be a pilot, and here I am. I'm not really sure this is what I need to do, but that's what I'm working on.
Hope you enjoyed dinner. don't forget your bill on the way out the door. And I would introduce you two, but everybody knows you all. You're just back again.
Back again.
Back again. So, you don't count. You have to be new. Huh? Oh, well, stand up and introduce yourself. Tell everybody all about y'all.
All right.
He loves bonanzas, details.
Gary Boykins, we lived in Columbia all our lives, and this is my wife, Kim. She makes the decision when I buy, what I buy. So, walk in the house and smile this time to buy something. But we owned a neighbor, and we sold it to, Tony, yeah. And we recently bought another lot, and probably about 2 years we'll rebuild and start flying again.
And like Ray said, he likes bonanzas. We had some goals that Ron Greenfield set for us at the first of the year, and we tried to accomplish all of those. He wasn't able to complete his year due to having brain cancer. But some of the things, the accomplishments that we've gotten done that reflect in the budget, the monies that we spent, we put up security lighting on Golden Jubilee. I'm sure everybody's noticed that, to sort of light it up. I don't know if we've cut down on the amount of drag racing and everything that goes on there or not, but hopefully we have. We set up a gate committee to investigate the costing and everything for gates and everything, and we'll have the results of that here shortly. Then, thanks to the efforts of Brother Ackerman here, we made him our fence man. He has a gentleman that works for him full-time that took on the responsibility of repairing our fence and get it back in a good state of repair. Changing out boards, changing out posts, and all of it and everything. And I think we spent somewhere about
$1,900 first time, $900 the second time, $2,800.
$2,800 to get the fence back in tip-top shape, and not one of us had to pound a nail or dig a post hole, which is even better. One of the things,
$1,000 on the budget.
So it's completely repaired, doesn't need anything now, we're good to go?
we're good to go, and it's going to be ongoing. We let it get in a pretty bad state of disrepair. So the plan is to look at it on a regular basis and have him look at it and replace boards, do whatever needs to be so that we can keep it in the condition it is and it looks like somebody that cares lives here. One of the other things that we noticed was 3 or 4 years ago, we did the last runway touch up with crack sealing and everything. One of the things that we've noticed is we've got more cracks in the runway, we've got more cracks in the roads and everything. So through the efforts of Mr. Ramsey, the research was done and everything. To give you an idea, when they did the cracks the last time, we paid $1 a foot, and we had 7,000 feet of crack repaired just on the runway at $1 a foot. We researched, found this exact same equipment, exact same material. We are now the proud owners of our own crack sealer and a half a pallet of the rubberized sealant, and we've got our cost down to 22 cents a foot. So as soon as this is one of the things, as soon as it gets above 40 degrees when we can use this product, then we're going to start doing it, a little bit on a Saturday here and there, and just do it as we need so that we can stay ahead of it. Make sure, to keep the moisture and the water and everything out of it that causes the damage. And then when it comes time to have the top coat put on the runway and everything else, we'll be ahead of the game and won't have to pay for that expense. So again, trying to spend our money wisely and do it in such a way that it's cost effective.
I need to correct something, I misspoke. We paid $1,305.89 the first time for fence repair, $901.12 the second time. So not 28, but 22.
Oh, okay, even better. Even better.
$2,700 under budget.
Now, most of you that live here are aware that Comporium came in and they upgraded our neighborhood with their cable system with faster TV, faster internet, bigger, more, better, and everything else. And as I, for one, that live and breathe on the internet since I've worked from home, have seen a vast improvement in the services we get compared to Windstream and everything. But during this whole process, as everybody knows Mike Moore being Mike Moore did a little finagling. So when they were here boring to put in the new cable, he had them bore to bring water to the island up by his house and everything. And once Althouse you guys get yours going, we'll have some sprinkler in that island, so we'll have that. So I think that cost him lunch for the crew, something like that. So
That's why I've been reimbursed, that's all right.
yeah. Then, through for lack of a better term, the goodness of Ken and Peg Plesser, they took on the project of upgrading the gazebo for Lee Van Warmer, his wife, and everybody. And if you haven't been by there yet, since they finished the work, go by and look at it. It's immaculate, it's shiny bright, new, and if you saw the Christmas light that the ladies put up and everything, so it's really looks good, and great job, guys, appreciate it. And not to be left out, I like seeing things cut down and big stuff done. We did some research and we found a reliable person, worthwhile. We cleaned up the brush and everything on the approach end for 27. I assume everybody's seen it. So you can walk down. We've probably got, how many feet of creek do we have wide open now, Mike? 300 or 400?
At least.
Yeah, you can walk down and sit on the creek and do whatever. It's a gorgeous little creek. We never knew it was there because you couldn't get there. So we've got that area clear. The next piece of the project is...
Shooting range. No.
The next piece of the puzzle is we're going to start burning up some of that pile, and then we're going to start cleaning up the rough area where he cut all the brush down and everything, so that we can get it, so that we can put a little grass seat down there and get it so we can run a bush hog through it and make it a grassy area, so it'll look nice and people can use it and whatever. Also, if you know somebody that needs firewood, the last hurricane that came through blew down 2 or 3 big trees in the backside of the lot, hardwoods. So we're going to have to do something with them, whatever, but if somebody needs firewood or whatever,
There's still plenty laying on my lot.
it's there for the taking and everything. Just one more thing to help us clean it up and everything.
You need a helicopter to get it out.
Not if they cut it in little pieces.
Get it back.
Not if they cut it in little pieces. And as Bo mentioned earlier, we got a semi-official civil engineer report on the overall condition of the runway, and as he said, we chose not to have core samples done because it was an expensive option, and trying to be good stewards of everybody's money, we figured that, well, if it looks bad, maybe we can identify it being bad without having to have a core sample done or whatever. So we'll continue on doing what we've been doing.
We chose to put the $6,500 in savings this year rather than paying in.
Yeah, yeah.
Can I say something, Ken?
when we talk about the clearing down there, like Steve said, there's plenty of free. If you take the time and walk down there, I envision, I'd like to see that develop into a green space down there that the whole neighborhood can enjoy. There's some things I've seen on the internet. We camped up in West Virginia this past summer, and we could put a fire pit out there by the creek with swings or whatever, if we want to do that. I sent an email out about a month or so ago. I think about 6 or 7 people at least responded that they'd like to see that developed into something. And so if you'd like to see that, drop us an email or something and let me know.
In its current condition, it's very easy to walk down there. It's not a difficult walk whatsoever, so you can stroll down there when it warms up. Now, sir.
Real quick, you spent a lot of time on the runway condition, and certainly we understand the crack sealing that's necessary. Are there any other problems with the runway that are going to require perhaps near-term work? Any buckling, any chunks missing anywhere? All it is
for asphalt that was put down in what, 99?
99,
Yeah.
It's been there going on, what, 19 years?
Yeah. For asphalt that's been put down that long, for the amount of care or the lack of care that it's had over those years, it's in really good shape. We do, try to get heavy equipment and trucks and everything off of it and whatever, but there's nothing that we've seen or had anybody point out to us that's an issue.
It is a patching of it. The last time that we did crack sealing, there was some areas where they called, I don't know what they call it, gator crack.
Alligator, whatever, yeah.
They cut that part out and put some fresh stuff down. Yeah. But overall, not much of that. It's in good shape. But we spent money on sealing cracks and on seal coating it.
Yeah.
And we'll still need to seal crack. But
The concern, of course, is because we've now had some freeze-thaw cycles. Hopefully, water hasn't gotten in there that.
Yeah. The runway right now is in better shape on cracks than the taxiway. There are some places in the runway, but not many. If you walk the runway, you can see it. There's not a lot of cracking on the runway. Taxiways are a different story.
And the roads and everything else, because when Sunday I went out with my little measuring wheel. We have 10,105 feet of asphalt, 16 feet wide. So in the non-runway areas, so counting all the little taxiways back to the hangar and past Kazi's and out the service entrance and all the entrances and everything. So it was surprising just how much we had in 10,000 plus feet. So now, one of the things that Ken Plesser and I started, and we're hoping in the February update for the FAA, we worked with the FAA. We got latitude, longitude updates for each end of the asphalt, the middle of the runway. We gave that information to the feds. We updated the contact information. We have a Google phone number so that as we transition from one president of the Pilots Association to another, we can just forward that number to them so that instead of everybody calling Ken now for permission to land or fly their drone or whatever, we'll let Jack do that for now. But with the updates, if we got them all the right information, if you have ForeFlight and you've flown into an airport, you've seen that it lets you do a VFR approach pattern and everything in there. Well, if we did it right, you'll be able to get the same thing here based on the nearest winds from Columbia for the correct runway 27 or 9 or whatever, and it'll identify the traffic pattern and everything. So we'll see. It's something we've been playing with. We'll see what happens with the February update.
Back on the runway, did the engineer mention anything about the water getting in under the runway causing premature failure? We have some areas that just do not drain, and sometimes there's actually standing water after a rain that comes right up to the runway. What I do know from experience is that will cause the asphalt to fail. Did he address that, or?
The extent of his survey was he and I walking the length of the runway, making a close inspection on both sides of the runway. There was nothing evident that led him to believe that there was an imminent threat to the runway. His biggest concern was that the crack sealer that's in the cracks now is not up to the surface, it's sunk. You know, after they laid it down, of course, it shrank some, and we didn't pay the guy to come down a little later. So his biggest concern and his estimate was based on an assumption that there's nothing wrong with the underlayment. You noticed a sag, I think it had been repaired before, right next to Mr. Bridger's house where that pipe goes under the runway. There's a little dip there. I don't know if you have noticed it. I'd never seen it until I walked the runway with it. It's not pronounced, but it is there, and that was the only thing that he pointed out that looked like any sort of deficiency in the underlayment of the structure. But it's already been addressed years before.
We're fortunate that unless we have just a really gully washer of a rain, you can look and you can see where the water's gone out of the ditch, the drainage ditch, and put a little mark on the asphalt and everything. But that drains really quick after it rains, so we're pretty fortunate with that. So there are a couple of wet areas down where Corey's house is. Cargile's put in some drainage, French drains underneath there, but it's still a little wet at times and everything. But it's
Like most of the time.
yeah.
It doesn't drain worth it.
Yeah, get out your checkbook.
The issue with how fast it drains is related to how the place was built. There's a header pipe right out here in front of Falstead's Hangar, between Falstead's Hangar and Wheat's Hangar. There's a couple of them actually. The pipes coming from the south side of the runway, from the road, are bigger than the pipe that goes from that header down to the creek at the bottom. So that backup is actually caused by the fact that there's a 21-inch pipe coming in and an 18-inch pipe going out. So that header fills up, and it takes a while for it to drain, pull out of water from the south side and make its way down to the creek. And that's until it becomes a problem, I would suggest leaving it lay, because that's going to be some money. So if it hasn't washed out the runway yet in how many years?
We had the 1,000-year rain, whenever it was.
Yeah, 3 years ago.
So I would suggest, yes, we know that could be an issue, but it hasn't become one yet, and it's not. Since it's lasted for 20 years, a reasonable person would expect it to be sufficient in its current state rather than spending a bunch of money if it's a problem we don't think we have.
Now,
but we're just lay people, so.
As everybody that watches the Golden Globes and the Oscars and all that stuff, okay? This is my segue, okay? This is my segue.
You need a volunteer for a crack filling machine.
No. That comes later. I got your number, don't worry.
Hey,
But, hush. But as you've seen, when they get ready to do all the announcements of the awards, they always say, accounting firm, Joe Blow, tabulated all the results and everything else. Well, we're fortunate in that we have something similar. We have the accounting firm of Ross and, I forgot Kevin's last name.
Hogan.
That tabulated all of our voting that relates to the new officers and the gate. So, Brother Ross?
Okay. This past weekend, Kevin and I counted the votes that came in by mail. And a total of 53 property owners responded by mail and sent their votes in. And when I read the next totals, you have to understand that some of these property owners own more than one lot. Some of them own 3 or 4. So they pay 3 or 4 dues. So they get an extra vote. The homeowners have elected Corey Allhouse. He got 68 votes. Mike Bailey, 72 votes. And Steve Krim, 68 votes. There were also 3 write-in candidates. They received 1 vote apiece. Okay? So congratulations to the new board.
You'll drink to that?
Yeah, we,
Also, Festus and I, we worked this past year and did a proposal to y'all through some gate companies to do some security gates. And that was also sent out by mail. And the votes were returned, and the security gates did not pass. There were 59 no votes and 18 and a half yes votes. And the reason there's a half a vote is some people own a lot and a half. So that's how you get the half. But, so the gates did not pass. And so I gave a copy of this to the secretary, so she has the information for the minutes.
and I would like to again thank Larry and Festus for what they did in gathering up all that information and everything. It was a monumental task and just a lot involved, so. Now, we haven't really had an opportunity to think about Ron Greenfield or Jim Causey. And so I'd like to open up the floor up to everybody to say something about them, what they've known, them, experiences, this and that, and everything else. Okay.
So, I don't know where I saw it, and Don may have shared it, but if you haven't seen it, a really touching tribute is out there on YouTube on Ron Greenfield.
Oh, yes.
And it shows a story of when Ron was shot down in his helicopter in Vietnam and how he lost his leg after many, many painful surgeries, and that he went on to he just saw an ad with 2 Russian kids that didn't have any legs, and adopted those kids and raised them, and just he said, hey, I know how to deal with this. I can help these kids deal with that. And I don't know if that story doesn't speak to Ron Greenfield's character. I don't know what does. If you haven't seen it, I don't know. Don, were you the one that shared that? I can't remember.
Pam put it out. And then I shared it on Facebook.
And I did, yeah.
And at any rate,
It's on
I encourage
the
you to
blog,
go. Yeah, if you don't, at least for me anyway, if you don't have drop a few tears watching that, really speaks highly to the character of the man. That aside, just the character of the man, if you knew him, amazing individual, and with such a positive considering what he went through in life, the positive outlook that he had.
It made you think it was a privilege to know him when you saw that
Right.
whole YouTube thing.
It was. Oprah did a special on him, and John Boy Walton, whatever his name is, did probably a special.
Yeah. I thought that was the special you were talking about.
That was
Is
one.
that on YouTube?
That's what I'm talking about. I didn't know it came from. I didn't know it was an Oprah thing. But
There was Oprah, and then there was a
Ron Howard.
John Boy.
Yeah.
Ron Howard.
From the one, see, he narrated it, yeah.
Yeah, anyway, there were 2 of them,
Yeah.
and they're both good.
Yeah.
I don't know that they're on YouTube, but they're available.
Posey?
Well, I, for one, am going to miss Jim Causey. I don't know what we're going to do with the supervisor. All these little projects around here. But he seemed to know exactly what time we ate. So I did knocking on our door, and certainly love the boy sausage and sauerkraut that I made.
One other thing that I forgot to mention, back to the business. A couple of boards ago, with Clem and I believe with you, Festus, they had an attorney that gathered up all of the official documents recorded with the county. It's 1,200 and something pages. I got a hold of that and gave it to Don, and Don has posted it in a not so public area of the blog. So if you want some reading that will just put you right to sleep, If you want to know about every transaction from the time that Neil bought the property from the people that owned it up to a year or so ago, it's out there for you to just go through page after page after page of stuff. Anything else?
I have updated the plaque.
Oh, great.
Ron Greenfield and Jim Causey's name are now on the plaque. The plaque is now full. I'm intending to build some sort of shadow box that is somewhat waterproof and put it in the gazebo.
Yeah, good.
The next entry will have to be on an annexed plaque, so I will build it large enough to.
Jack, so does that mean that no one's allowed to die now since it's full?
We've had enough people die recently, thank you now.
There are 6 names on that plaque, by the way.
Yeah, yeah.
It is full, but I will build it big enough to put an annex plaque below it, and we'll have to have some input to figure out where to put it down there. So, but that's done now.
Okay, if there's nothing else, then I call this meeting adjourned. Let's do our picture. Oh, lots of food. Take the food.
Nobody leave.
Nobody leave. We're going to take pictures. We got to do our calendar picture. Oh, you guys don't know about our calendar picture. Oh, yeah. We're going to enshrine you on a calendar.
And don't leave without your bill.
Yeah, and don't forget your bills. Thanks a lot. You only get 3 or 4. Where are the bills?
Damn, y'all went up. I swear.
Not timely. We're going to have this. They're looking for updates to the data. We'll see what happens.
Hang in there. I got to bring it all the way back to get everybody. Already done? Oh, it was time.
Hey guys. And Don can't sit, don't like my bird.
Now make sure you see the camera.